I have to tell you, it's never going to be a right time. It's never going to be perfect. Stars will not be aligned perfectly like you think. You have to take the steps because somehow things fall together, and anybody who has made it, you'd understand that they did brick by brick. You learn, you fall, but eventually you start gliding through life. If you think that you're not good enough, change it to I am evolving, I am growing, I am becoming a better version of myself, and I will make it. Welcome back to Be Wise podcast, where we talk about conversations that help us enlighten, excel, and of course, become better versions of ourselves. My name is Belize Umuhoz, and shout out to all the subscribers and everyone that has been listening. And today's episode is something very important that we all face, that we all deal with, and it's about breaking free, breaking free from our insecurities that prevent us from becoming our authentic selves and the best versions of ourselves. Let's be realistic. Have you ever felt like you're not good enough? Because it has happened to the best of us. You feel like you're not successful enough, you're not capable enough. There's always some sort of voice telling you you're not this, you're not that. It is a journey to finally combat it. There's people who live out here without listening to that voice. But it all comes down to insecurities that we all have, which hinder our lives and how we show up in the world. So by the end of this episode, I want us to break down the source, how it shows up in our lives, and how we can rewrite our story so that we can become stronger and better. So where does it come from? To begin with, where do you think insecurities do come from? You can drop it in the comment, but I think insecurities come from different things. Of course, we live in a world with social media, comparison, so many things going on in the world. So it's that voice that makes you compare yourself to someone else. So if you keep comparing yourself in this life, I've realized it steals away joy. Comparison is the thief of joy, and we need to come to understanding that that's the fact of it. But all those are voices that fuel that insecure part of you. Another thing that could cause you to have deep insecurities could be the childhood voices, the childhood experiences, or trauma, the way they call it, trauma, that can affect you. Maybe I would like you to do a small reflection. Go back to your childhood and re-evaluate that voice that comes in and says, you're not enough, you're not capable. Who do you think you are? Of course, coming from comparison, societal expectations, there's so many things going on in the world. But name it, see it, and make sure you silence it. The best thing that I do that has helped me overcome this, I remember before I started what I'm doing, or even standing up on stage talking to people, because I do emceeing as well, I was like, who do I think I am going in front of people to speak? But I changed the narrative and I told myself, where did this come from? Of course, it came from childhood, someone mentioning it, and of course I grew with it. I'm like, the voice was saying you have to be successful to be able to stand. You need to have a lot of experience, but that is not the fact of the matter. So I changed it and I said, I'm growing, I'm evolving, and challenges are here to help me think different and of course show up differently. So the two places that it comes from is voice of comparison, your childhood, and of course fear of not being accepted. This one is a crucial one because sometimes we find ourselves in rooms where you are scared to even say your opinion, or even voicing out how you feel, or even meeting someone and having that courage to go talk to them, because you have insecurities, you have environments of people that have made you feel small, that have made you think that you're not capable. However, all this can change. I believe we're all worth of so much, and your worth should never be questioned at any cost, because you're strong, and we only have one life to live. Do we ever sit and think about that? Do we ever sit and remember that one life is what we have, and if we can maximize it and show up differently, we can achieve more? So just to recap, it is voice of comparison that affects this, childhood experience, and fear of not being accepted. That's where it comes from. So now let's ask ourselves, at what point in life do these insecurities show up? In your opinion, it requires reflection to sit back and see things that have been limiting you, that have affected your confidence, where you feel like I'm not capable of showing up. It comes from somewhere, it roots from somewhere, but how does it show up? Sometimes it shows up in fear of being accepted, like I said, you'll be in environments and you're so confident. You dress up, for example, you go to that meeting, but you find yourself feeling small. You want to really hide, and you're like in the back, not even wanting to be seen. Yet you have the capability to literally stand in front of people and say what you have to say, or even do that networking. And that's just an example. It can show up in different places. Another way that I have seen that actually makes me crack up sometimes is when I meet people that say, "Oh, I'm a perfectionist. Oh, I like my things being perfect and all." Listen, the world itself is not perfect, but that's my personal opinion. I believe perfectionism is it's a mask for insecurities. You really are trying your best to show that you're so perfect so that people don't judge you, so that you can feel good or a certain way. But most of the times, all our lessons are in failure or like learning from what we haven't done. And the scary part about perfectionism, how it's a root of insecurity, it delays you. You start having these voices in your head telling you, "Oh, I'm not ready enough. Oh, I'm not yet capable of doing this." And because it's not perfect, you want a perfect setting. I have to tell you, it's never going to be a right time. It's never going to be perfect. Stars will not be aligned perfectly like you think. You have to take the steps and not want to be perfect, because somehow things fall together. And anybody who has made it, if they truly are open and tell us the truth, you would understand that they did brick by brick. Same example, like learning how to ride a bike. You learn, you fall, you're scared to actually hold the pedals and keep going, but eventually you start gliding through life. That's the same aspect when it comes to perfectionism. So the way that insecurities show up is the fear of being seen, of course, and as well the part of perfectionism. Another crucial, important one that I have faced, and I have to be honest, is the part of self-sabotage. Have you ever been in a situation where you're showing up, everything is going forward, and you just stop showing up for yourself? That's where procrastination comes in. You don't want to take those opportunities. Of course, that perfection thing comes in, and you're like, "Oh, it's not yet the right time." There, you're literally sabotaging yourself, coming from an insecure part of you, because the voice will tell you, "Oh, you're not capable. You think you can do this?" No. Yet you have maybe done 20% of what you're meant to do of the 100%, but that voice kind of limits you. So I would say you need to say that you deserve all these things. It's possible. I think it's possible. And if we learn to stop self-sabotaging, if you want to learn a lot about self-sabotaging, by the way, you need to read a book, and I insist, a book by Brianna West called The Mountain Is You. I love the way she explains it. She says, the distance between where you are right now and where you want to go, there is a mountain in front of you. And that mountain has all these fears or all these traumas, all these insecurities that boils up, which blocks you from getting to where you want. So that book really, really opened and transformed my way of seeing how you can tap into your best version by dealing with the mountain in front of you, because it's you literally stopping yourself. So self-sabotage is something so important. We'll probably do an episode for it alone, but it's part of insecurities. So that's how it shows up, through self-sabotage, perfectionism, and fear of being seen. Now, let's get to the most important part. How do you break free from your insecurities? Of course, before I go ahead, it can show up in your relationship, but that's another way that it shows up. But you start wanting control. You feel like people are not, the world is against you. You start having mistrust, yet it's because you simply don't trust yourself, and the insecure part of you has come up. But that's a whole episode on its own. But those are the three main parts, because when we self-sabotage, we end up sabotaging even our friendships and our relationships. So I want you to take this time to sit and reflect and wonder, where do these things come from? Has it been a story that I was told when I was young? Was it a parent? Was it a teacher that told me I would never be a winner? Or somehow some story you've heard? And then change the narrative, rewrite it. If you think that you're not good enough, change it to, I am evolving, I am growing, I am becoming a better version of myself, and I will make it. Trust and believe. The first time it's going to sound weird. That's why I believe in I am affirmations, because they actually work. The first time you're going to sound crazy. The second time you're going to start having a little bit of self-belief. The more time you start talking to yourself positively, it transforms your life, and you find yourself going and attaining the goals you can attain. I love the technique that I've used in the past 3 years, I think, that have kind of helped me is the part of identifying that voice and just being an observer. Because we have these thoughts. Thoughts come in. It's like an engine. They enter, they go, they're working somehow. But it's your choice, which is consciousness, of course, and awareness that makes you pinpoint and say, no, I have to show up. For example, people who are consistent in the gym, waking up at 4 a.m., they have the voice saying, oh, no, you're tired. Get some sleep. It's a bit cold. But because they are fighting against that voice in their head, they still show up. So rewrite your story, rewrite the narrative, and find the source of where it comes from. Another part is building self-trust. I have to emphasize this. Majority of the times, we literally put trust in other people without putting trust in ourselves. That should be a questionable thing. At what point do you trust another human being and you're not trusting yourself? So when you start trusting yourself and taking those bold moves and saying that I can do this, somehow you start to show up better, those insecurities go, and you have confidence, which will be the episode we'll be talking about next time. But you build that character that can show up whether situations are not aligned, whether it's cold, whether it's not a perfect timing, but you still show up. So change the narrative, build your self-trust, and of course, practice self-acceptance. Stop saying you have to be somewhere for you to be happy, for you to be confident, for you to be capable. No, those insecurities are going to make you feel like you're not at the right point, the things are not aligned, but accept that you're where you are and you can do the best that you can. Meaning, sometimes focus on today rather than being stressed about the future and give it your best. I realize sometimes we do push and create lives that are so big and you're like, oh, I want to achieve this. But when you break it down and you show up daily on a regular basis and you want to do your best with every day, if you can't do it today, we try again tomorrow. Accept it. It's okay. Things are not going to go your way, but keep showing up, keep doing it, and fight against your insecurities. And guess what? Over time, you're going to realize that your self-narrative and self-talk has changed. Before we close, I'll give you a personal story. Before, I was not a confident girl. I used to be people pleaser, and of course I would put other people on pedestals without really looking at myself. But I realized that the whole time I just wanted a sense of control. But later on, when I did more of the work on myself, I realized that I come first. You cannot pour out of a cup that is not full. So I would tell you and emphasize for you to love yourself more and fight against your insecurities. Let's not call it fighting, but harness them and change the narrative. They're there. It's part of the journey. But how do you deal with it? How do you identify it? At what point do you change your mindset and say, okay, now I can finally say I'm showing up consistently? That's where the evolving comes in, and you realize that insecurities don't control you anymore. We miss out on so much opportunities because we let these inner struggles affect our lives. So for today, my assignment is for you to take a pen and paper, sit down, see the limiting beliefs that you've had, where do they come from, and understand that these are insecurities, and then change the narrative and work on it. Once again, shout out to everybody that has been subscribing. We love you so much. And of course, more episodes coming in, and make sure to hit that subscribe button only on Be Wise Podcast.